Hi, my name's Sophia, and me and my chemistry for engineers group mates, Dina, Tom, Maria, and Gustaf, have created a presentation about the opioid epidemic and addiction and all about the chemistry that has to do with it. It can also be used as a lesson plan as we have a homework/worksheet that can be done with 15 questions. So the first part of the opioid crisis is the global and societal implications. In 2017, Donald Trump announced a national emergency on drug addiction and the opioid crisis. 2011, 6 states and multiple Native American tribes also declared emergency responses to the opioid epidemic. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration, National Institutes of Health, and CDC are all calling for less addictive painkillers. Overdose fatalities increased 400% in women and 237% in men between 1999 and 2010. And between 1999 and 2013, overdose fatalities quadrupled. Of 20.5 million Americans that struggle with substance use, 12 years and older, 2 million began with prescribed opioids, and 500,000 all involve heroin. Over 44% of teenagers between the ages of 12 and 17 that did not have a prescription for opioids still had an addiction. 20,000 adolescents used heroin in 2015. 5,000 of those kids were consistent users.
Opioids is a type of drug. It's made from the poppy plant. It's used often as a medicine, but can also be used for enjoyment and pleasure. It's used as a pain reliever, and it has effects similar to morphine. They act on opioid receptors to create this morphine-like effect. They can be classified by the chemical structure shown in the slide. However, not all opioids are based on the same chemical structure. They have different physiochemical properties, but they all target the same receptor. To understand how opioids work you have to understand how they affect your body. For example, when one is entering the bath, if the water is too hot, the body's first reaction would be to pull away from the water. The receptors in your body send signals to your brains indicating that there is something wrong, which is why your body jerks away from the hot water. When opioids are consumed, they slow down the brain's ability to respond in pain and trigger a reward sense. This is how the opioids work in your body. Opioids produce analgesia along with the other potentially unwanted effects such as sedation, dependence, and apnea by activating a mu-opioid receptor.
Opioids can be classified by their chemical structure. The phenanthrenes, a polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbon composed of 3 fused benzene rings, an organic chemical compound with a chemical formula C6H6, is based to opioids such as morphine, codeine, and oxycodone. The phenylpiperidine is the base of fentanyl, sufentanil, and alfentanil. Phenylpiperidine is a chemical compound with the phenyl group, a cyclic group of atoms with the formula C6H5 deeply attached to a piperidine. Opioids such as methadone are based on diphenylheptanes. Not all opioids are based on the same chemical structure. They have different physicochemical properties and different pharmacokinetics, meaning despite being absorbed by the body differently, they mostly target the same opioid receptor, mu, by activating a U-opioid receptor coupled with G protein in the central nervous system to which it binds. The receptor itself is a 7-transmembrane domain, a receptor with 7 domains going through the membrane. G proteins transmit the signal. Their activity is regulated by factors that control their ability to bind and hydrolyze guanosine triphosphate, GTP, to guanosine diphosphate, GDP. When they are bound to GTP, they are on. When they are bound to GDP, they are off. G proteins link the change in mu-opioid receptor conformation made by the external substance to downstream signaling events that set up the effect of opioids.
Dopamine is a chemical messenger in the brain that is also known as a neurotransmitter that sends chemicals that regulate the body's movement and motion, the cognitive understanding of the human body, so how you interpret things and how you learn. But most importantly, when dealing with opioids, it focuses on the reward system of the body and the sense of relief when you ingest an opioid.
Dopamine is a monoamine compound and neurotransmitter that regulates motor control and release of hormones, including happiness or euphoria. They send signals to other nerve cells in the body. Dopamine is also greatly involved with the motor system, as I said, so when the brain cannot produce enough dopamine, it can result in diseases such as Parkinson's. Dopamine contains neurons, which are like the opioid receptors that we talked about. They increase activities when affected by opioids. How dopamine works with receptors is through the concept of agonists. Strong agonists are like substances that fully activate the receptor that it binds to. For opioids, this includes morphine, methadone, and fentanyl. Strong agonists maximize response with receptors to increase pain relief and levels of dopamine. This leads to addiction because of the rise of dopamine, so increase of happiness, and the feeling of euphoria, so users want to continually take the drug and build up the tolerance.
Okay, drug withdrawal and addiction. Dopamine withdrawal occurs when the user over-administers the drug, and that leads to a certain tolerance that the body develops. Drug tolerance can be clinically achieved through two ways. Needing to take a higher dosage of the drug to achieve normal brain activities, and having a dependency on the drug, which leads to withdrawal symptoms. Drug withdrawal can be physical or mental. They can include headaches and dizziness to poor concentration and symptoms like insomnia.
So in summary, opioids are medicines used in the treatment of patients with acute pain. When ingested, they can interact with the receptors in the body and brain to trigger the way the brain responds to pain. Neurotransmitters such as dopamine regulates body control and the release of hormone, and they have opioid receptors. So when dopamines are affected by opioids, there's an increased activity in the release of hormones such as happiness. The chronic use of opioids can lead to tolerance and also addiction. And drug withdrawal from this drug can lead to various side effects such as dizziness, headache, etc.